Eileen wakes up from a nightmare and finds herself in a secret room, with her hands tied and her body chained. When she screams for help, a voice from the ceiling tells her to complete the task. The light in the room turns dark red, and the voice instructs her to complete a simple task within a limited time. She has to move an object on the table in front of her. The voice gives her a reason to obey. If she fails to complete the task, her young daughter Eve will die. This hits Eileen's weak spot, and she cries out her daughter's name. The monitor on the opposite side of the room suddenly changes, and a special countdown begins. Eileen calms down for a moment and decides to finish the task first, and then plan the next step. She tries to bite off the zip ties around her wrists, but they are too thick and hard. When she lowers her head in despair, she sees her shoes and comes up with an idea. She looks at the timer and sees that the red cubes are disappearing faster and faster. She holds one shoe and throws the other one. The shoelace is not long enough. She sees that there is not much time left, and decides to take a risk and throw the shoe directly. At the last moment, she looked up and wanted to speak, but her body suddenly fell into a coma by the electric shock. Then the woman entered the dreamland and saw her beloved daughter playing on the beach. She happily talked to her, and slowly lay down on the soft sand. But good dreams are always so short. When she woke up, she had already disappeared. She saw that the machine did not speak either, and began to observe the environment around her. She could not touch the lights on the wall, which had a faint electric shock. The metal seat in front of her was firmly fixed. She stood on the chair and touched the ceiling, looking for a way out. She gently scooped up a spoonful of food and put it in her mouth after a while. She was surprised by how delicious it was, and quickly scooped up the second spoonful and started to gobble it up. The food was soon eaten up. She looked at the plate below. The smooth surface of the plate was like a mirror. The person in the mirror had changed a lot. She could not believe how haggard she looked. Her hand also had a scar. She touched her hair and realized that she might have been locked here for a long time. Thinking of this, she quickly threw down the plate and backed away. The surrounding space was silent and a bit scary. She curled up on the chair and did not know what to do. She touched her head unintentionally and found a big wound on the back of her head. In panic, the woman called the machine repeatedly, but still did not get a response. She could only cry in pain. At this time, the image of her daughter suddenly flashed. A moment later, the woman woke up again. She heard the machine speak and began to resist. She refused to continue the tasks unless she could talk to her daughter in person. The woman and her daughter had a brief conversation. When she heard that her daughter was scared and wanted to go home, she clenched her fists. After the conversation, she decided to continue the tasks. She walked forward but found that the game difficulty had increased. The light changed, and the countdown began. A glass wall blocked her way. She was only one step away from the pen, but she was helpless. She slapped the glass, but it was indestructible. She could not find a gap in the glass. She turned around and tried to lift the chair to smash the glass, but the chair was fixed and could not be moved. She watched the time disappear. She looked around but could not find a breakthrough. She held her head in despair. She tried to use her body to hit the glass, but the soft and hard glass bounced her back to the ground. She had no tricks left and watched the time run out. The machine that could talk ignored her. She saw the timer was about to end. She shouted in despair and saw the pencil move unexpectedly. She completed the task with only 2 blocks left. The light turned on, and she was shocked by an electric current again. Then the woman entered the dreamland and saw her daughter playing on the beach. The only difference was that she had a scar on her forehead. At this time, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She woke up quickly and saw that she was tied to the chair again. There was a strange man in front of her. He did not say a word and rushed towards her. She looked at his wedding ring and then at her left hand. She remembered that the man in front of her was her husband. She quickly explained to her husband what she had experienced in the secret room. Her daughter was kidnapped and could be in danger at any time. She had to follow the machine's tasks and did not know when it would end. Then the machine started to speak. The task became breaking the pencil on the table. Roger, who came in, was confused and asked various questions. The machine did not explain anything and changed the light. When Roger picked up the pen, an alarm sounded. The voice did not allow the man to complete it. Roger had to put down the pencil and run to untie his wife. Having experienced the previous test, the woman realized something. She thought she could control things with her mind, but she couldn't explain it. The man started to talk endlessly, while the woman focused on the pencil on the table. Then she angrily said a sentence, and Roger quickly shut up. The pencil floated in the air, broke into 2 pieces, and fell on the table. The task ended in an unbelievable way. Roger was surprised and asked his wife what she had done. The woman's ears bled. She felt like she was missing some sound. Then the familiar electric shock came, and the woman fainted. In her dream, she saw her husband, who was still nagging as usual. She didn't know why her daughter suddenly disappeared, leaving her toy behind. The woman woke up screaming her daughter's name. Roger rushed to comfort her, but the woman felt a huge pain on her head. When Roger checked her wound, the machine suddenly issued a task. Put the ball in the bucket. Roger picked up the ball and put it down again. The light changed with it. Having learned from the previous round, the woman wanted to use her mind to complete the task. The ball did not move at all. Roger suggested that he could push the table over to the woman. She closed her eyes and decided to try. After concentrating, she moved her finger, and the screw followed. The strange thing was that the woman could feel the screw in her mind. She closed her eyes again and gathered her strength. She moved her finger, and the screw came out smoothly. Then it was the second one. The screws came out faster and faster. When she started to control one screw, and then 4 at the same time, the woman became more proficient in controlling her mind. In a short time, all the screws came out. The table was a bit heavy. Roger had to use all his strength to move it. The woman moved her head, and the ball followed. She focused her mind on the ball. Having experienced the screw rotation, the woman was obviously more mature in controlling her mind. She finally succeeded in putting the ball in the bucket. The task was completed, and the light became brighter. After this task, she could easily control the shape of the sand, flip the pages of the book, and make the water bottle spin quickly. She completed the tasks assigned by the machine easily. Of course, the green food was essential. The room task was upgraded. The machine put the disassembled gun on the table, along with a shovel and a bucket. The things could be associated with the beach. What was the meaning of a gun? The woman didn't have time to think. She just wanted to finish the task quickly. The two had a disagreement and started to argue. The woman felt like she had seen this quarrel before. The quarrel did not weaken, but became more intense. When Roger angrily slapped the table, the woman was completely angry. The parts on the table moved faster and faster. She quickly assembled the gun, but the machine told her that the task was not finished. Roger panicked. She loaded a bullet into the gun. He praised his wife, but he was very nervous. He hurriedly stopped his wife. The gun was not for killing each other. The female protagonist seemed to have gone mad, her eyes wide open like a lunatic. She pointed the gun at Roger and fired it instantly, but the bullet stopped in midair. Then she used her mind to block the bullet. The bullet fell. The task was completed. The light came on, and the woman who had fainted after the electric shock entered a dream. Strangely, she had a headache and couldn't find Roger and her daughter. She squatted down and found her husband's ring buried in the sand. She dug a few more times and then dug out her daughter's shoes. She fell to the ground and a pile of yellow sand poured down on her. The protagonist woke up from her dream and saw Roger locked in a sealed glass box. There was an entrance on the top. Sand was constantly poured into the box. The protagonist circled the box and didn't know what to do. Roger screamed desperately, hoping his wife could save him. Facing the shoulder-crushing glass, the protagonist knelt down again and had no idea what to do. She could only watch her husband being swallowed by the sand. The task failed. The room lit up with another color for the first time. The protagonist begged the robot to give her another chance. She said she would work harder, but the robot only repeated one sentence. The woman who couldn't stand the reality shouted and knocked the robot down. The door of the secret room opened, and a group of fully armed men in black walked into the room. They pointed their guns at the protagonist. She moved her fingers slightly, and the men in black fell to the ground. They had no chance to fight back. She opened the helmet of one of the men in black. The face looked familiar. The protagonist finally walked out of the secret room. The door of the room said, "Test 0298. More men in black came and shot at the protagonist without saying a word. The protagonist was not flustered. A transparent barrier isolated all the damage. She used the familiar finger movement. After some practice, she played with the movements in various ways. The men in black in front of her were twisted like paper. She moved a finger, and the eyeballs of the men moved with the wind. She saw that the elevator in front of her needed to recognize the eyeballs. She quickly went to the next floor. The light in the room was different from before. The room said 0927, task completed. The protagonist entered the elevator with doubts. After going up a floor, the elevator door opened, and there was a purple light in front of her. She could hear a man's voice. She walked towards the man and found out it was her husband, Roger. The protagonist was not surprised. The man was obviously scared by something. He pointed to the door behind him and told the woman to look. Behind the door were several bags. She opened the second door, and it was full of her daughter's toys. The third door was full of sand. Soon a large group of men in black arrived. But facing the protagonist who had cheated, it was a self-defeating action. The protagonist seemed to understand something. She used her mind to open the helmets of the men in black. They looked at each other in shock. They were all her husband Roger. It turned out that all the men in black were Roger's clones. The battle ended. The protagonist deliberately picked a cute one. She controlled the flowing sand and slowly pierced the cute one's body. He fell heavily to the ground. She continued to move forward. The door opened, and a beam of light shone. The familiar voice of the robot came again, but this time the robot told her that the test was over. She had completed all the tasks perfectly. Her daughter was not here. The robot awakened the protagonist's memory. One day the mother and daughter were chasing each other happily on the beach. Because of some trivial things, the couple argued loudly in front of their daughter. The daughter seemed to be used to it. She covered her ears with her hands. In the quarrel, Roger slapped his wife. She couldn't fight back. She clenched his fist and roared. He accidentally activated something. The protagonist finally remembered everything. The robot opened an exit. It was a door that could leave the secret room completely, but the protagonist hesitated. If she walked out of the door, it meant that she would never see her daughter again. She looked at her daughter in the dream and sang her favorite song with her. She made a surprising decision. She returned to the secret room and lived in the consciousness with her daughter forever. She woke up again and saw the familiar pencil on the table, and the movie ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.